This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
In Windsor, there will be 900 replacement workers, foreign workers, and in Montérégie, another group of hundreds of foreign workers. So can we see the contract for each plant to see how much taxpayer money the Prime Minister is spending on foreign workers? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the opposition leader for the question. Canadians can see where Conservatives stand on this. When he was employment minister, it wasn't 3,000, it wasn't 30,000, it was 300,000 manufacturing jobs in Canada. Stellantis will be investing $3.4 billion to build the largest battery factory in North America. We are investing to get jobs for Canadians. We will invest in Windsor. We will invest in the industry, and we will continue to work in our own workers, invest in our own workers. The Honourable Opposition Leader. He would be a good employment or labour minister for South Korea, Mr. Speaker. By the way, the Prime Minister said there would be no consequences from doubling the national debt. But in the economic statement, the government indicated that they'll be spending $52 billion. That's $3,000 per Canadian family in debt service. That's more being spent on debt service than on health. Why is the Prime Minister giving more money to bankers than to nurses? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, Canada has the lowest debt and deficit of all G7 countries. And we have a AAA credit rating. At the same time, we do have an economic plan that is responsible, that will enable us to make the necessary investments in the Canadian economy. We're building housing faster than ever before. We're providing dental care. We're providing early childhood care. The Conservatives just want to cut, but we know we need to invest in the Canadian economy.
Feed Ontario, a coalition of food banks, released staggering numbers yesterday. 800,000 Ontarians went to the food bank 6 million times. This is a 36% increase, the biggest increase ever. If the total number of people who visited a food bank were a town, it would be the fourth biggest town in all of Ontario, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister therefore cancel his plan to quadruple the carbon tax on the farmers who feed us and pass common sense Conservative Bill 234 to carve out the tax for farmers?
Sure. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we know that things are challenging for Canadians right now. That is why we are there for them, building more homes faster, providing dental care for children and seniors, cutting child care fees by 50% across the country. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? The only thing the Conservatives know how to do is cut. They would cut child care, dental care, housing. Mr. Speaker, that's not common sense. That is nonsense.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That minister and the Prime Minister have imposed brutal cuts on Canadian families who opened their fridges to find nothing there. The report out demonstrates that in all of the last 7 years, Ontario Food Bank has gone up. And last year it went up by record amounts. 800,000 people went 6 million times to the food bank in this province. Wow. There's a bill before the Senate to take the carbon tax of the farmers who feed us rather than quadrupling it as the Prime Minister has said he will do. Will the Prime Minister stop interfering with the independence of the Senate and let the bill pass so that we can bring home affordable food?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, the Leader of the Conservatives is demonstrating this week that he just can't tell the truth to Canadians. So whether it's the Canada-Ukraine free trade agreement where there is no price on pollution, he can't
May I remind all members not to approach the limit of what would be considered parliamentary and to stay far away from that so that it is not impugned that a member is deliberately not telling the truth. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The truth is the Prime Minister wants to quadruple the carbon tax, including on our farmers. I have a farmer in my riding who's spending $10,000 a month on carbon taxes alone. All of that is passed on to the consumer. The consequences have been a record number of Canadians relying on food banks. 7 million Canadians are going hungry. 1 in 5 are skipping meals regularly because they can't afford the price of food. Will the Prime Minister get out of the way, stop interfering with the Senate, and let them pass common sense Conservative Bill C-234 to take the tax off the farmers who feed us?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just because the Leader of the Conservatives says something does not make it true, as we saw several times last week, whether it was with regards to how they voted on the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, perhaps why he blamed others for his mistakes when it came to how he jumped to a conclusion for a terrorist attack. And now what he's talking about with C-234, he knows that is patently false. And when it comes to food prices, that's because of the war in Ukraine and because of inflation. But, Mr. Speaker, he cannot direct the Senate either. And unfortunately, his members are doing things that are threatening the democratic principles and rights of independent senators. That is shameful, Mr. Speaker.
In the midst of the housing crisis, StatsCan revealed that in just 1 year, rents rose by 8.2%. Never before have rents risen faster than inflation. According to National Bank, the cause is unprecedented population growth. The chief economist says unless Ottawa lowers its immigration quotas, we don't expect much relief for households. Mr. Speaker, National Bank is not anti-immigration. They're saying there's a problem. Will the federal government finally admit it instead of insulting people's intelligence when they talk about this? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, the member opposite knows full well that Quebec controls its own immigration levels, and to assume that the rental increases are purely caused by immigration, that's a bit rich.
A 45-year-old woman in London, Ontario, who works full-time and makes above minimum wage is living out of her car because this government failed to offer her affordable housing options. While the out-of-touch Liberals failed to deliver homes people can actually afford in their community, the corporate-controlled Conservatives sold off 800,000 affordable homes to rich developers when they were in power. Canadians deserve better. When will this government start building homes people can actually afford so they don't have to live out of their cars?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the heart of everything that we do as a government is putting families first. The lady that was just referenced who is experiencing a difficult time, we're there. We continue to develop programs through the CEAS Canada Child Benefit Program, through early learning and child programs. Mr. Speaker, we continue to ensure that we provide the support that is needed so that families across this country have what they need. Thank you.